this is the year for Abdul to make that jump to an All-American status, right? And like when you watch the kid, you want him off the bus first.
Yeah.
You watch him run sideline to sideline. He makes fast guys look slow, and he's not a small guy. There's a lot to be said about just his God-given raw talent. Like, what is it for him that he needs to develop or do more consistently or whatever to make that jump to that guy who is kind of like the make everybody else right, etch his name in the All-American hallway, get a nice picture up there with the likes of LeVar and stuff.
Yeah.
Doing
up there.
But I'm just talking linebackers, right? Like,
right.
Like those types of guys. Yeah. Like, what does he have to do to make that jump from being like just a freakazoid that people are drooling to get their hands over and mold into a system to a guy who's like, man, dude, this kid's a damn near finished product. He's plug and play.
Right. Yeah, I'd say it's everything is just up here in between the two ears, man. As you said, he has the God-given ability to do whatever you ask him to do. Whether it's line up on the edge, blitz a gap, he's an excellent blitzer. Yep. And that's the thing I think that him – I hate comparing guys, but obviously him and Mike could get the comparisons. Mm-hmm. But I think they're slightly more different than they are alike. And there's been people talking about Micah should be lined up here, there. Regardless of that, I think with Abdul's natural kind of heavier set, I think the kids, he walked in as a freshman 240, 245, probably pushed 250, 255 now without losing any of the explosiveness, which, like you said, first kid off the bus every time. So, the God-given ability is there. It's everything up here for a stack backer, even line up on the edge. When you just kind of learn the game more, you have 2 years of experience, which is nothing is better than that compared to all the tape you can watch. But how can he, gather all of that with, additional film study of other players, other linebackers, other opponents, the offensive schemes and things like that to build that anticipation. I always hear anticipation talked about for quarterbacks, which we all know is necessary. I can let you rip off on that. But for defenders, it's just as important.
Yeah.
The anticipation of how this puller is coming around this block. And are you going to, rip under? You're going to cut across his face? You're going to shed and pull? There's simple things like that. Or if it's the slant window from the number two, a double, what do you call it? Double in slant, whatever you want to call it. Your role is to take away the slant of number two, but with enough study, the quarterback wants the slant of number one. And how can you kind of maneuver and get into those windows, in the second, third level, which, I say it every time. We've seen glimpses of it. I think that's where he takes that step to All-American, where he has 3 picks, 8 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. He's literally all over the field. Obviously depends how they use him, but he has a capability to do exactly that. And with go ahead.
It seems like you're almost saying just the savviness,
pretty much
savviness, right? Like,
no, yeah. Ultimately, and there's no way to necessarily coach that.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, it comes with that experience and just being a student of the game. Like, you can just line up NFL Sunday, and if you're really dialed in, you're not watching the offense. You're watching Fred Warner. See how he maneuvers through this defense, how he's in the second, third window of the quarterback before the quarterback even gets there. Things like that.
And it's so hard because he's such a talented freak that it's hard to do this comparison, but it's a guy who I have a ton of respect for, who we played with, who didn't have those intangibles, God-given gifts, raw talent, was Mike Hull, but he had savviness oozing out of him, right? He knew what he had to do to be able to play at that high of a level, right? Where it's it's almost like Abdul doesn't really need it to be really good disruptive football player. But I think to your point, like it's like that double-edged sword where it's like not really laziness, right? Like I don't want to call it laziness, but it's the ability to fall back on something that is that much better than everybody else. The development of that either sometimes gets skewed or is slower because you don't have to use it as often to still be an impact player.
Right.
So I think the only thing I would say is that his ability to recognize that and then apply those things on a daily basis at practice, like you said, in the film room, and like actually make a conscious effort to like try to grow that side of his game. Yeah. I think that would help it quicker. But like, again, it's so hard. I'm trying to paint this picture like as easily as I can, because it's a tough conversation to have, right? Because it's like you're almost going to say like he doesn't need it, but I think he does if he wants to be that guy.
I'm about to say, I mean, you said it, to be, off the draft boards, number one defensive player taken, ready, a product that's ready to go. That's, like you're saying, that's what he would need. Not that he's still obviously God-given talents there, but a fully polished product, we'll say, that is the next step. Because from a Mike Hall, even myself, I'll take myself, for example. In high school, you're able to rip through the line, make a tackle for loss, and you kind of get used to that because it's possible. The tougher, the better the teams get. You're not just walking through the O-line, getting a sack, getting a defensive line. So you have to hone in on your craft, chopping hands, chopping arms, which I think he does a great job of. But then it's when you say Mike Hall savviness, I think of an undersized linebacker, by no means is weak, in the weight room, strong as an ox, but he knows how to defeat blocks. He knows how to set up an old lineman, or just he knows the savviness of the angle this tackle's climbing up on him. And based off my skill set, he knows I'm going to try to slip and dip because I'm quick. But no, I'm going to shock him and rip across his face and be on the other side, be where I'm supposed to be, based off the savviness that, I know where the ball's going. And I know where the O-line wants, thinks that he knows where I want to go.
Yeah.
Slight things like that, once again, it's up between the ears, will take him to the next level.
He kind of reminds me of Gerald Hodges. The more and more I think about it, like G was a stupid athlete.
Yeah.
A completely different recruit. Like I think Gerald came in as a safety. And then
he played quarterback in high school too.
Yeah, and they ended up putting weight on him and stuff. Yeah. But like completely different athlete. But I think when you looked at the finished product, like very, very similar. And G did that. G did a lot of that, like with because Mahdi was there with him, and like Mahdi kind of anchoring it down, and G just ran around and made a ton of plays.
Right.
I think Abdul can kind of be that. If he makes that jump that we're talking about, can kind of be that combo guy. Yeah. And ultimately, Brandon, like you could talk about this, playing with a guy like that, like makes your job a whole hell of a lot easier too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I said, him and Kobe King can be. I don't want to put too much hype on them now or too much pressure or whatever you want to call it, but they can be the best tandem starting in the Big Ten in the country. Like I said, Abdul can jump to All-American status. Kobe King can jump to All Big Ten status, and hopefully All-American status himself. But I think they can be a deadly duo. Once again, as you alluded to, Abdul can be thrown around in different capacities where he's not lined up at traditional stack linebacker, maybe they drop him from the end. Maybe they rush him. Maybe, he has that's the thing. His body type is honestly really different than any linebacker I can say I've been around. 6'3", 6'4", whatever you want to call it. But the weight, the
250, 255. Yeah.
Almost, sky's the limit. I'm excited to see it. Like you said, it's in between the ears. How much can he hone in on the craft? All that is, self-reflectiveness, of what you see in the mirror, what you see on tape, really getting to it. But defense, linebacker room will be just fine. Pray for health. Pray for these young guys, to, pick it up and be just as hungry, like you said, push the standard even more, and we'll be just fine.